Good morning, everybody. It's me, Lori Stimson Ortega, a host of the Victorious Life Outreach Teaching Ministries, located here in the beautiful city of Roses, Tyler, Texas. I wanted to say, as you can tell, still fighting, but to all of those that have sent well wishes, surgery went well, and underneath or behind these beads and this uh, glamorized fuzzy shirt, underneath it all, a lot of gauze, a lot of bandages, etc. And I wanted to take this time to say this. I think we need a clarity on the definition of self-care. Now, what you don't see, I don't think you see, over to my left, you're right. There are like three pill vials uh, that I just took because one's for pain, muscle relaxer, and the other one's an antibiotic. And yeah, but I'm committed. so, yes, so I was saying with self-care, let women, men and women and men, let's get a good understanding of the definition for self-care, because self-care is not always about nails and hair and toes and purses and clothes and all of that. Self-care should first start with a healthy body. Okay, it should start with a healthy mind and then a healthy body. And let's just back that up: a healthy spirit, a healthy mind, and a healthy body. Because, you know, many of you know, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020. So, and I had reconstruction. So this is just a residual effect of that. Um, Trying to, so I'm still cancer free. I'm just had nothing. While it had something to do with cancer, it did not. I am still cancer free. Good morning, Sir Charles. But it's March, still technically the beginning of a new year. Let's take care of our spirits. Let's take care of our minds. Let's take care of our bodies. For a lot of you men out there, please, you go get checked. Okay, you go get checked. Go get your colon checked. Go get your prostate checked. When you start hitting uh 30s and 40s, you need to check those things, because those things will play out on you if you don't take care of them when you get older. And so, go colon cancer is one of, I've heard, the easiest cancers to address and cure by getting a colonoscopy. So make sure that you are getting men and women get a colonoscopy, especially you men, get a colonoscopy, because it not only is it going to, it could save your life, but it's also proactive. So they're doing some things while they're probing, and they knock you out anyway. They're not sitting up there talking to you about how, they're not talking about that. But men, get your prostate checked, get your colons checked. They have lowered the age for that. It used to be 50, but now I think it's around 40, 45. And I think that's because of the foods that we eat. Women, this bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction is a result of me taking a proactive approach and me advocating for myself. Unfortunately, we still, society, women of color, we have to advocate for ourselves. Had I not advocated for myself, I could be it could have been a lot worse. So advocate for yourself while you're getting these nails done and you're getting this hair done and all that. And we advocate for those things. Those things are external. Take care of the internal. So, yeah, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. All right, Mary Poppins. Okay. All right. We are talking about, this is our 8th lesson, and we are going to talk about the teachings of Jesus, and in particular, the Sermon on the Mount. And within the Sermon on the Mount, are the Beatitudes. And I've heard a lot of old seasoned pastors say, be of this attitude. So I put that in the notes. So let's go ahead. Because of the situation, I'm not going to be able to do a recap. Just go back and review that one. Review the one from last week. Matthew chapter 1, I've got my notes and I got coffee and I got my phone. Matthew chapter 5 reads, and seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, and we did say something about this last week. When Jesus saw the crowd, you remember last week we talked about the difference between popular, fame, and famous. Well, by this time, Jesus, the scripture said in Matthew chapter 4, at the very end of that his fame had spread. So by this time, Jesus is famous. Okay, he's not a local celebrity. So because so many people are following him, what you're going to start seeing throughout his ministry, or really throughout the reading of the Gospels, you're going to see him remove himself to a place really where he can teach and preach to more people. Now, here's what I want you to understand. When Solomon said there's nothing new, there's really nothing new. Jesus understood, even before we did, the importance of sound and acoustics. So if he went up into a mountain, the sound would be elevated, and the wind and the bouncing back of the sound hitting a barrier, the barrier being the mountain or what have you, rocks or what have you, it would act as an amplification system. So it wasn't that Jesus was just, oh, let me go sit on this rock. Oh, let me go get in this boat. Let me go sit on this mountain. Let me go sit by this whale. No, he was strategic when winning or trying to or trying to reach people. He was very strategic. So that's one of the reasons, or the main reason, when he removed himself to the crowds to teach them and preach to them, it was for acoustics. So here we see, the first thing we see in Matthew chapter 5 is him going into the mountains, into a mountain, and got a good seat. Now, like we said on last week, when he sat down, the disciples came to him, and notice what it says in 5:1. And he opened his mouth and taught them. Now, I think we really do need to get a good understanding that Jesus had more disciples than the 12. The 12 was his inner circle. A disciple is just a learner and a follower. That's all it is. You can be a disciple of a kung fu master. You could have been a disciple. Jet Li he was a disciple of the man who taught him, I think, Wu-Tang karate. Okay, which incidentally was Ip Man. That's played. Danny does a wonderful job portraying the teacher of Jet Li. Okay, a very humble character. All right, now so when you understand that a disciple is just a learner and a follower, then the 12, they were his inner circle. But not only was he teaching the 12, but whoever heard him that committed to following him, they then became his disciple. Do you remember when it said he had too many? There were too many people on the gravy train. And do you remember he said, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you can't be a disciple. And remember he said many of them left because they didn't understand that. They thought Jesus was talking about cannibalism, and he wasn't. He was well aware that a lot of the people that were following him were in fact lecherous leeches, that they were following him for the fish and loaves. They were following him because it got them out of doing work. So I think it's important for us to for us to understand that everybody that was following him, to a certain extent, they were disciples. And I'm not taking away from the 12, because the 12, again, that was his inner core and his inner circle. And do you remember a few weeks back, we talked about that, the importance of building your team, the importance of having a core set of friends who hold true to your value. Now, your values. Now, I have friends, I have a myriad of friends. I have a very, I will openly admit, I have a very small circle of friends. And within my small circle, we may not agree on politics. We may not agree on, uh, I think that's pretty much some of the things that we don't agree. That's like the main thing we don't agree. Some of us don't agree with, but in the different policies, etc. But that does not diminish. That's not powerful. Those differences are not powerful enough for us to cease from being friends. And the reason I say that is because the inner core, or my core, or my team core, or my team, we've weathered the storms. We've lost parents together, we've lost siblings together, we've been highs and lows, illnesses, job changes, children issues, spousal issues, etc. And they remained constant. It's almost like, what I'm saying to you is, when you're building your core of people that are going to help you navigate through life, you want to make sure that, and I know this is going to sound extreme, but it's almost like the vows for marriage, the sickness and in health, rich or poor, not necessarily death do you part, but there are some friends that you have that you're going to be friends to the end. You know that because you know each other, likes, the dislikes, etc. So when we talk about the disciples, that was Jesus's inner core, and it's very important for you to have an inner core of people who support you, who believe in you, who keep you on the straight and the narrow. It's very important for you to have people who support your dream, but also are going to be there to say, wait a minute, have you thought that through? So again, when it said that he went to the mountain and the disciples came, his top priority was to them. But in the teaching of them, he did not isolate himself. And after you read that, look at what he said. He saw, and I want to take you back to verse 1 and just kind of stay at verse 1 for a minute, because notice he said he saw the multitudes. And I wanted to make this point, that the setting where this teaching took place was the mountain. Okay, so symbolically, if we isolate the fact that he used it for acoustic purposes, then you understand the significance of a mountain. A mountain is a rock. It is a rock formation. That's all it is. So if we look at it symbolically, and we know that mountains are comprised of rocks, then when a rocky material or rock is just one giant rock, then the symbolism in that is for you to be this is your foundation. This is the core. This is the structure. This is going to be what he's teaching, is going to be the foundation, or the foundation principles of the gospel that he's going to preach and teach. And I want you to take a look at his posture in here, because it said that when he was set, that means he was ready. Whenever you get ready to start building your core team or your life, you've got to be set. You've got to be ready to do that, because sometimes you don't get you may not have a margin for error. So he was set and he was ready to do and to say whatever needed to be said. And the audience were his disciples. So they were the core disciples, but then there were other people that were on the verge of committing to the ministry. And I do feel in my spirit I need to say this one more time. For the skeptics who usually run with whatever I say, and notice I said skeptics. I apologize for maybe the way I say it, but I'm not apologizing for what I say. So if you're going to run and say, Lori Simpson Ortega said that Jesus had more disciples than the 12, thank you for that, because we are all followers and learners. So he did have more, but to the people who, the non-skeptics and the non-Bible people, you don't say the Bible in Sunday school, the 12 was his core. So it says, so he saw the multitudes, verse 2, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying. Now, teaching, and I think we did an okay lesson 2 lessons ago with this, teaching and preaching. When you remove the P from preaching, you get reaching. So in this case, he is teaching, he's providing instruction. Sometimes preaching is motivation, exhortation, exaltation, etc. So this is what's going to be referred to as teachable moments, as Minister Stephanie Williams says on her show, Nuggets. Okay, he's going to be teaching. Great show to check out too. I think she broadcasts on Tuesdays. So it says, and he taught that he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. All right, let's talk about this for a minute, okay? When Jesus said, Blessed are the poor in spirit, all right? When he said, Blessed are the poor in spirit, let me get my, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I want to kind of press pause, all right? Because the first thing I want to go back to in my notes is when he taught them, okay? Discipleship requires that you be teachable. Discipleship and being a disciple of Christ, it requires you to have a learner's mentality. It requires you to understand this is something you cannot do on your own. Okay, it requires you to know that. And preaching and teaching are not done only in church. This is teaching. We're in my kitchen. Okay. Teaching, it's so if you're saying, well, I want to get all my word from the preacher. Okay, well, God bless you in that. But you cannot survive on just exaltations and exhortations in increments of 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, okay? You can't survive on that. So if you're going to church and all you're showing up for is the jubilistic service, you cannot survive on that. You have to study the scriptures for yourself. We for the past 20 plus years, we taught you on how to select a Bible or the different Bibles, study guides, Bible, Sunday school books. So you can't survive just on exaltation and exhortation on a Sunday morning with guitars, tambourines, etc. You have to be teachable. You have to be a learner. So while church is extremely important, the most important thing is that you are a learner, that you can commit your life to learning. So those of you who are unchurched, non-church, and church hurt, I want you to think about that. When you church hurt people, when you were going to church, were you going for the full course meal, or were you going for the buffet? I don't want to go to Sunday school. I just go to Sunday morning service. I don't go to Sunday evening service. I just go to Sunday morning. I don't go to Wednesday night Bible study. I don't go to prayer service. I don't do any of that. I just go and I read my verse every day. Well, that was a calling card for hurt me. Okay, that was a light bulb moment for let me put all my eggs in this one basket on Sunday. So that's what I'm saying. So church hurt. That was your question. That my question to you. Unchurched and non-church. Until you decide to allow the Lord to actively lead you to a ministry, then I am advocating that you first and foremost purchase a Bible, a physical, tangible Bible. And I'm also advocating that you download a Bible app onto your phone. I'm also advocating that you go to the Christian bookstore or you go online. Actually, I'd like for you to go to the Christian bookstore. Pray before you go because it can be overwhelming. But pray and ask the Lord to where should you start? Okay, where should you start? And what kind of study should you do? All right. And then go to the Christian bookstore and ask the attendants, tell them what you want to do, and they will lead you. And you spend about an hour trying to find you an old school pen and paper, uh, an old school pen and paper study guide because it's important. Okay, it is important because you cannot get everything that you need just going to a jubilistic service. So I want us to also understand from the standpoint of discipleship, you have to be a learner. So this lesson is going to focus primarily on learning the things that he wanted us to learn first. Before we start running out here laying hands on people, speaking things into people's lives, anointing people, let's get this straight first. Okay. So he said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Oh, thank you. Girl, I was just talking about you. Hey y'all, this is one of my cores right here, one of my team. Uh Shoot, I just took 3 pills. I am in so much pain, but you know what? This medicine with this hot coffee is gonna kick in. Thank you. I tried to jazz it up, girl. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. I don't know the rest, but you are my golden girl. Thank you. It's my core. My core friend. Tell Lucinda. Tell Bone. That's why I didn't get to go on the soiree because I was trying to protect myself. My grandson was here, but I was trying to protect myself so I could have this surgery, and I had it, and it was successful. So thank you for your prayers and well wishes. Uh, See, that's what I'm talking about. Your core, they may not stay the whole time, but your core pops in to check on you. That's what I'm talking. Get you some good people. All right. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, I want to provide clarity. Blessed or blessed, depending on the circle you run in. Blessed is a derivative of the word bless. And let me look that up because I know the definition that I want to say in my head, but I feel like I'm going to go in a different direction. Now, the word blessed, the root word blessed means. Now, there's a Bible definition, and there's also, I'm going to read the non-Bible. Okay, so this says pronounce words in a religious rite to confer or invoke divine favor. Yeah. What is the true meaning of blessed? To consecrate or sanctify by a religious rite, make or pronounce holy. Now, the reason I read those two definitions is because I was only stuck with one. But when Jesus said blessed, let's look at that word. Blessed, again, is derivative of the root word bless. So if we know, based on the definition that I read, that blessed means to consecrate or sanctify, and if it also means to confer or invoke divine favor upon, then Jesus was saying, you're blessed blessed are the, or blessed are the poor in spirit. He didn't say blessed are the financially wealthy, the financially rich. And there's nothing wrong with being rich and wealthy. I'm not here to preach or teach a gospel of poverty or prosperity, for that matter. But when he said, blessed, uh, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What he was saying is they're blessed because they're seeking. They're blessed because they're seeking after something that's going to last them a lot longer and will go farther than wealth and riches. So that's why he said, blessed are the poor in spirit. He was saying, because as long as they're poor in, when a person arrives at a place where they're poor in spirit, then they start to seek a solution. And in the seeking of a solution, they are turning to him. They turn to Christ as the solution. And I think that's where we are in our society. If we're not careful, we're going to seek after the things. And the problem is that they seek it in the things of this earth: position, money, fame, power, and sensual pleasure. He's saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. So if you know that your spirit is troubled, if you know that you have, there are some gaps that you need to fill in, if you know that there are some areas that you need to work on, he's saying, seek me first. Don't turn to money to go buy a lot of things, um, and I'm just going to be real transparent. Sometimes when I have a lot on my mind, and when I need to change things, I will admit sometimes I go on Amazon. Okay, sometimes I go on Amazon and I start looking at things, and I have a cart in Amazon. So if anybody wants to bless me to get the things out of my cart in Amazon, I think my cart in Amazon is uh, $50, and then my cart in Sheen, because yes, I decided when you're on your bed of affliction, and you have a cell phone and you're in pain, sometimes when the medicine is not kicking in, you just troll. I like to troll decorators, and yeah, so my cart in Sheen is maybe $85. So my point is, when you have idle time, and sometimes when, again, using myself as an example, when I have things that are on my mind, sometimes I will find myself on Amazon. Sometimes I will find myself on Instagram, just looking at ads and looking at needlepoint websites, and making carts at needlepoint websites. And when I catch myself doing that, put this arm down because it hurts. When I catch myself doing that, I stop and I say, wait a minute. We're not about to waste money. No, we're not wasting money on this stuff. You have everything you need. You may not have everything you want, but all your needs are taken care of. So let's sit down and look at what's troubling you, what's bothering you. Because if we're not careful as believers in Christ, we won't turn to these things that I mentioned: position, money, fame, power, sensual pleasure. We may not turn to those things, but we may turn to shopping. We may turn to eating. We may turn to, just some people digress inwardly. So that's what I'm saying, that a lot of times, if we're not careful, we've got to be mindful of what we are seeking after and seeking for. So he's saying, you're blessed. Blessed, those people are blessed, and they're blessed because it's not so much as they're being poor in spirit, but their mental and their spiritual condition is leading them to him as a solution. And notice what he says: for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Sometimes if we're not careful as believers in Christ, we will seek only after the blessings of this world. Okay, we'll just seek after financial and tangible blessings, the things we can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. We will seek after those things. So he was saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And he's saying they're blessed because they have an open, they're looking for a solution that cannot be filled in the purchase of tangible goods and services. And I think that is one of the most important ways that he could have started the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount, because it addresses that one little verse number 3, addresses and sums up the mentality of mankind in the society that we live in and have lived in for many years. It has been that starting it this way addresses the ongoing plight and the struggle of man, because man has been deceived into thinking that that tangible goods and services and the accumulation of wealth and prosperity, that those the and the the attributes and the validations of beauty and external factors, man has been convinced that that's the blessing that he needs. But look at how he started this. Jesus was saying, no, you know what? The real need is a renewed spirit. So blessed are those who have that are poor in spirit, because when a person is poor in spirit, I wrote, they acknowledge that they are in spiritual poverty. It is poverty, absolute and abject poverty of spirit. It is being destitute and conspicuously poor in spirit. All right. So we want to understand that being poor in spirit doesn't mean that a person is naturally poverty stricken or financially poor. That's not what he was talking about. And sometimes when this is preached and or taught, that is that's what I'm sorry, y'all, this bandage itches. That's what is taught, or that's what is sometimes people will feel that they'll think that Jesus just wanted people to remain in poverty, and the less you have, the closer to God you are. No, that's a lie from the pit of hell right there. That's a lie. He wasn't preaching that. He wasn't preaching that. He wasn't teaching that. He was simply saying that hunger, nakedness, and hunger and nakedness and poverty, they're not pleasing to God, especially in a world full of plenty. So he wasn't preaching or teaching a gospel of poverty, and he was not blessing poverty. He was saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, because if you're poor in spirit, like I said earlier, you're going to seek after him. And he's saying that if when you're poor in spirit, that's seeking after him for a better way of living, a better understanding, that is what is going to lead you into true and real spiritual prosperity and better knowledge of him, so that you will be able to address, if you are in poverty, you will be able to successfully not only navigate through that, but navigate out of it. So I wanted to say that poor in spirit is the opposite of having being full of yourself, and I think that's something that we really do need to think about, and I challenge you to think about that on this week. Have you arrived at a place in your life where your needs and your concerns are top priority? All other, like they say, all other ground is sinking sand. And that's a song actually, where it says, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and his righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest fame, but only lean on Jesus' name. Is that the mentality that you have? Because sometimes if we're not careful, we are going to have all of these different, we're going to have different dynamics, and our focus is going to be, again, continuing on to keep gaining the tangible goods and services, and again, the accumulation of things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this first verse, verse 3, when it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," he wants them to focus their attention on things that are eternal and less on the things that are external. All right. And then the poor in spirit are blessed with the kingdom of heaven, because that's what he said. All right. The poor in spirit receive forgiveness of sin and God's continued remembrance, the assurance that God will never leave them. And I think that's important for us to understand as well. So we get to verse number 4. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now, this is kind of this is a kind of tough uh beatitude right here, because usually when you're mourning, you have a broken heart. Okay. And a broken heart is the strongest possible area of mourning. All right. And it is like the deep mourning and wailing that occurs over the death of a loved one. So when he said, "Blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted," I want you to think about that. And again, I apologize for the way I say it, but I'm not apologizing for what I say. I need to put this arm in a sling. Um, having lost, I do believe, now I have no counseling background, okay, whatsoever, but I do believe there are levels of grief, okay, and there are also levels of mourning per se. During the course of 5 years, we really did lose half of our family. It started with our niece, Tanisha. Okay, Tanisha and her little boy. So they passed away, we'll say 2001. 3 months later, she passed away. Let me see. Yeah, 3 months later, my eldest brother passed away. He died of a massive heart attack. 2 years later, my father passed away. 2 years after that, my mother-in-law passed away. A year after that, my mother passed away. And then a year after that, my brother passed away. So one while it was just layer upon layer of loss. So I understand this verse wholeheartedly. When Jesus said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they will, they're going to be comforted." I want you to understand there are some things in this life that you will lose in the form of, it may be people, it may be opportunity, it may be, jobs or physical things, that it's going to feel like a death. Okay. Now, here's what I want to say using my personal experience in this area. There are still days and still times when I will catch myself thinking about all of those people, all 6 of those people at random times, and I may shed a tear. I may shake my head and say, "Boy, I wish," I say this all the time, "Boy, I wish my father was here." Boy, or if I'm cooking something, my children and my husband will hear me say, "Boy, if my daddy was here, this would be on the regular menu rotation." Okay. And then sometimes I'll say, if I'm making something or sewing something, I'll say, "Oh man, if my mother-in-law, Miss Ortega, if she was here, we'd do whatever." So when Jesus said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted," then he understands your hurt. He understands that it's that level of brokenness. That he understands that. And he was saying, don't, when he says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted," he was saying, don't allow what you've lost to get you distracted from being thankful and focusing on what you have. Now, in the loss of those 6 people, let me tell you, our family's trajectory immediately changed. I now have 3 remaining siblings, and we remain in contact. We check on each other. We take care of each other. We give each other updates. We celebrate each other. Now, it's not like we weren't doing it before, but we make it a point to reach out and connect. We share information with each other. I was saying to my brother, on Friday, I had surgery on Friday. So my daughter and my sister, they came over, and I called my little great niece to see, the baby. I wanted to see him. And it was Valentine's Day, but prior to the surgery, we had discussed him coming over so his parents, they could go experience, Valentine's Day kid free. So, and Fabian, he had to go work a game. So I called her to see if, hey, can I pay you to babysit Honey? I call my little grandson Honey. Can you babysit Honey? Well, my sister, when my husband said Claire and Allison are coming over later because he was going to go to work, if I don't tell you the high level and the outstanding quality of care that I received from my daughter and my sister, it was bar none. Okay. Now, do you know why my sister provided excellent care? She brought me food. She sat, talked to me. She helped me to the restroom. Whatever I needed, she was there and said little prayers and stuff. Because of the losses that we've had, we don't take any illness, any cut, any scrape, any scratch. We don't take any of that for granted. So when it said, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted, he was saying, I wrote, who is it that mourns? Who is it so full of grief that he cries and weeps and utters groanings deep from within? There are 3 people who mourn and utter groanings. The first type of person that really mourns is a person who is desperately sorry. So that's what Jesus was saying. He wasn't really saying it from the standpoint of losing of death. He was saying from the standpoint, you realize spiritually that you're out of order. So when he says, blessed are they that mourns, the first person that he's talking to is a person that is desperately sorry for sin. And when he or she has been made aware of their sins, then he or she starts to seek forgiveness for those sins. Okay? He or she starts to seek forgiveness for them. And they have such a sense that, wait a minute, I need to be comforted, because the enemy is toying with their mind. You can't be forgiven for that. You did this. No, you can't. He hasn't forgiven you for that. So that's the first person. And the person who experiences personal tragedy and intense trauma, he's saying, blessed are those who mourn, for they're going to be comforted. Jesus knows about our life situation. He knows what we've gone through. He knows our levels of loss. He's saying you're going to be comforted, and I think that's important because he knows those levels. He was saying, you're going to work through this. You're going to be okay. You're going to be comforted. So he was really talking to, I said 3 people, but he's really talking to 2 people. He's talking to the people who have lost, who have experienced great and profound tragedy in their life, but he's also talking to the people who are desperately wanting to be rid of their sin and their states of sinfulness, that they are like, wait a minute, the enemy's fighting them, and he's saying to them, you can't be rehabilitated. You cannot, God is not going to forgive you for that. So that's what he was saying. He says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And this is where I think I'm going to stop, because I think this medicine is kicking in. Uh, and I think I've gotten to verse number 5, and I think there's, yeah, that's half of them. Yeah. So I'm going to get to verse number 5. He says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." When meek is, it deals with humility. All right. It deals with humility, but it goes back again. You have to have a teachable spirit. When you're meek, you can be taught. When you're meek, you can you can you can be taught. You can be, you're still teachable. Okay. I'm texting him. You can still be teachable. So he's saying the opposite of meekness is arrogance or pride, and too many people, they deal in arrogance or pride. Well, you know what, we're going to cut this short because I think the medication is starting to kick in. I'm going to go back, take all this back off, and go lay down like I should have been. But when it says blessed are the meek, let's look back to those attitudes. Those attitudes, hey, those attitudes are these are the attitudes that you should have. And we've discussed those. You know what, I'm going to have to cut this short because I think this medicine has kicked in. So I had to co-text him because now I'm about to be knocked out. As can you say the thing? If you have Christ, you're already a winner. If you have the Spirit of the living God, you can face any challenge life throws your way. We're going to pick this up on next Sunday because I think I pushed myself just a little too quick. So God bless and God keep. If you have Christ, you're already a winner. If you have the Spirit of the living God, you can face any challenge life throws your way. You can live a victorious life. God bless you. You too, Chicken Wing.